What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I've got another incredibly important AMC update to bring all of you this afternoon. So what we're going to be talking about in this video are those big, bad, dreaded margin calls that all of the institutions are terrified of at the current time. Now, it is highly possible that we have seen a couple of these smaller institutions with smaller short positions in AMC get margin called even today and over the last couple of days. But we're going to be going over exactly when we would expect to see proof that these institutions may or may not have been margin called and have been covered. Now, we are also going to briefly cover this fake squeeze situation. If you guys have been watching my channel over the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about this situation a lot, and I want you guys to be protected. Now, I like the stock at pretty much any of these prices that we are seeing. If it went back down to the lower levels, I would continuously buy this stock. Now, we're going to go over exactly what I am expecting to see out of this fake squeeze, because the price movement of AMC right now is exactly what I was expecting to see going into the end of this week. Now, a lot of people have also been saying that this is not the squeeze, and they are correct. But some of you might be thinking, well, how are we going to know for sure that the squeeze has started? We're going to go over that in full as well. So before we get into all of that information, if you guys enjoyed the information and analysis that I provide for you in this video, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It costs you nothing to do it, but it really helps out and get this information out to as many people as possible. And the more people that we get exposed to AMC, the more people that we get into this movement. So when we're talking about margin calls, and when we're looking at the actual share price, we've seen a massive rally up in AMC over the last couple of weeks. Just in the beginning of May, this stock was trading in the $9 range, and we are now trading upwards of $18 a share. This is more than a double in the share price. Now, it makes logical sense that if you have a short position in AMC, you are trading on margin, and if the stock doubles and goes completely against you, you are going to get margin called. Now, there's a couple of different options that you can take when you are actually going to get margin called. So let's take a look at what your options are when you receive one of these margin calls. So a margin call is a demand from your brokerage firm to increase the amount of equity in your account. You can do this by depositing cash or marginable securities to your account, or by liquidating existing positions to generate cash. So there's two options here. You can either deposit more into your account by coughing up more cash, or you get forcefully liquidated of your position. Now, in my opinion, if any of these institutions are really, really strong on their short thesis on AMC, and in my opinion, they're absolutely wrong, but if they actually really have a lot of conviction in their decision to short AMC, what they're most likely going to do is just put more cash into their account in order to get back up to the minimum margin requirements. I do not think that we are at the levels right now that we would see forceful liquidations of people's or institutions' portfolios when they have these big short positions. Now, we can kind of prove this theory by looking at the most recent Ortex data. So the utilization 7 days ago, as we can see here, was 96.02%, and the current utilization is at 99.33%. This means that more shares on loan are going out, so more shares are being lent out to institutions than there were previously, because the utilization is essentially the amount of shares that institutions are willing to lend out versus the amount of shares that have been actually lent out on the market. So when we see the utilization go up, there are more shares being loaned out. Now, there is not a direct one-to-one correlation with the amount of shares being lent out and short positions, but it is extremely close. Now, the estimated short interest as a percentage of the free float has recently increased. Now, if you guys have been watching a couple of my other videos, I've been looking at a lot of this data, and it did not make any sense. The utilization was still incredibly high. There were not many shares left to borrow, and the short interest was continuously going down. And in a different update on AMC, we were actually looking at the discrepancy between the 490 million shares outstanding that there were supposed to be, and then I think another number that we were seeing from Ortex and Seeking Alpha of about 530 million shares. Now, Ortex was using that 530 some odd million shares outstanding in their short interest calculation numbers, which was artificially making the short interest lower. Now, how exactly will we know that there have been margin calls? So What we're going to have to look at is we're going to have to look at the estimated short interest as a percentage of the free float and the utilization. So if there were margin calls either today, yesterday, or the day before, we are going to have to wait for Thursday, Friday, and then next Tuesday in order to actually get a better insight on these utilization and estimated short interest numbers because of the T+2 settlement period. If you guys sell a stock in one of your brokerage accounts, those funds, if you're trading in a cash account, are not available until 2 days after you actually complete that trade due to a settlement period. The same thing goes for these short positions when they close them. So we are going to have to wait. And if this utilization takes a big hit and it goes down to 98, 97, even 96, that is going to suggest to us that there may have been margin calls throughout the beginning of this week. Now, another way we could look at this, we could look at iBorrowdesk, even though iBorrowdesk doesn't really represent the full market picture, but they would give us some interesting updates as well because we can see the actual amount of shares available to be shorted. If this amount randomly spikes up tomorrow or Friday or even next Tuesday, that is also going to suggest to us that there were margin calls. Now, the settlement period, the T+2, and coming into Thursday and Friday are going to be extremely important. As we all know, we have the share recount coming up on June 2nd, and we are supposed to receive the actual updated numbers within the first week of June. Now, in order for your shares to be counted in this share recount, they need to be settled trades. So any shares bought after this week are not going to count for the share recount. So this is why we have been talking about this fake squeeze. So wow, AMC is really ripping right now. Sorry about that. That just kind of caught me off guard. We're back above 19. So essentially what the hedge funds and institutions are planning on doing, this is my understanding of this, they are going to let the price run up a significant amount throughout today, maybe even tomorrow. Now, what I think that they are going to do is they are going to really come out in full force with the fear, uncertainty, and doubt in all of these articles. You're going to see things like AMC, the squeeze is over. You're going to see the price start to maybe fall, and that's not going to change anything in my opinion. We know that the squeeze has not started, and we're going to go over that a little bit later. And the hedge funds, all they are trying to get you to do is sell your position before the actual record date of the share recount so they can artificially lower the actual amount of shares that can be voted on in order to benefit them. It benefits us just to keep buying and holding, but again, not financial advice. You can do whatever you like with your money. So now let's get into how we are exactly going to know when AMC's squeeze is actually starting. So a lot of people have come out and said, as I said before, that this is not the squeeze, and they are correct. But if you guys are not completely familiar with this situation or how short squeezes work, when you look at this chart, this looks like AMC is squeezing, but that's not really the case. So there are two main reasons. One of them is more speculative that is essentially going to confirm to us that AMC short squeeze would be starting. The first is we are going to need to see a lot of these circuit breaker halts. So volatility trading pause. Stocks can also spike up or down and get halted on a volatility halt or circuit breaker. We have not seen the type of volatility in AMC where it massively spikes up and we see any of these volatility halts yet. Yesterday and the day before, we saw a technical breakout and a continuation and maybe even somewhat of a FOMO rally, a fear of missing out rally, when a lot of new investors are flowing into the stock and maybe even day traders are taking out long positions in AMC. So once we see those massive volatility spikes in AMC and we're seeing those volatility halts, the stock is going up hundreds of % in a day and crashing back down, and we are getting a lot of excitement out of this stock, then that might be the point where you could say the squeeze is starting. Now, the second way that we might be able to confirm that the squeeze is starting for AMC is going to have to revolve around how much control that the hedge funds have over the entire market and AMC specifically. Now, this is going to include a specific date, but I typically hate talking about dates because I do not want to get anybody's hopes up for the squeeze happening by a specific date. But even if this situation does not happen by this date, the fundamentals are there. The due diligence is still there, and we are going to eventually see a squeeze on AMC, which is why I am holding as long as it takes. So this is going to have to do with the option chain for AMC. So When we're looking at this specific strike, June 18th, 2021, and we look at this $40 strike, there is a 155,745 open interest on this specific contract with a volume today at the current time that I am recording of 57,000 contracts. The open interest tells us the amount of contracts that people are holding in their brokerage accounts at the current time. So how does this have to do with how much hedge funds can control the market? So it all has to do with gamma squeezes. So when the different institutions and the market makers are selling you and me, the retail investor, these options contracts, they essentially become short the stock. Now, in order to actually hedge this position, one option contract controls 100 shares. So for every one of these contracts, they have to go out and buy 100 shares of AMC stock. So here is basically what I'm thinking. So if AMC can reach $30 or $35 a share, that is going to suggest to me that the hedge funds have completely lost control of the share price of AMC. Right now, it looks like they're letting it run up, but we've seen this many times with the short ladder attacks. They will come in and dump a bunch of short shares on the market in order to artificially push the share price of AMC down. Now, I personally do not think that any of these $40 strikes have been hedged yet. Now, this is a wild amount of shares that needs to be bought. And if AMC can get to $30 or $35 a share, I think it's going to be blast off from there, because all of this buying volume that is going to come in due to the institutions covering this specific contract is going to massively push up the share price of AMC. But as of right now, this is not the squeeze, in my opinion, at all for AMC. We are in the very beginning stages of this situation, and we have a lot of very important catalysts coming up for this company where we are going to get a lot more insight into what is exactly happening with the amount of shares outstanding. So that is going to conclude this update for AMC. If you guys enjoyed the information and analysis that I provided for you in this video, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It costs you nothing to do it, but it really helps me out a whole lot in getting this information out to as many people as possible. And the more people that we get behind this movement, the better off we are as a community. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.